This exclusive from The Independent reveals that business chiefs are urging Labour to consider a fantastic plan to rejoin the EU under a new membership scheme. What's this all about? Let's read more into it, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an exclusive from The Independent with the headline that business chiefs urge Labour to consider a fantastic plan to rejoin the EU under a new membership scheme. The Labour leader is told to keep an open mind about radical plans to give the UK access to the single market. I'm a bit like thinking, okay, like I'm glad that the businesses are trying to push Labour into doing it, but I feel like we need to be part of the European Union in order for us to have the best deals possible, the best things possible. But let's read into it before we jump to conclusions, guys, about this. So business bosses have urged Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer to consider a bold plan to bring Britain back into the EU's orbit through associated membership. The French and German governments commissioned a report recommending a new outer tier for non-members, which could be opened to the UK in a bid to forge a closer economic ties. Under the associated membership plan, outer tier countries would be expected to contribute to the EU's annual budget in exchange for participation in the bloc's single market. Labour insisted the idea was a non-starter, but eyebrows were raised when it emerged that Sir Keir had told fellow leaders at a conference in Canada that we didn't want to diverge from EU rules. Britain's trade chiefs, frustrated by Brexit red tape, told The Independent that they welcome the idea of associated membership, saying it would be fantastic to remove tariff barriers and cut down on the current friction. It came as The Independent revealed that Sir Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron held secret Brexit talks in Paris and covered all the difficult issues and not just pleasantries, although Sir Keir has ruled out rejoining the bloc if Labour come into power. So what? How did they know that that's what they talked about? You know what? It actually is. It is possible, to be fair, that they had secret talks about Brexit. Maybe, you know, we've got to have some optimism, right? You know, we need optimism in times like these, you know. So Nick Allen, Chief Executive of the British Meat Processors Association, the BMPA, said, anything that makes trading with the EU more seamless would be a good thing. It would be a big improvement on what we have. He added that I'd like to think Labour and all parties would keep an open mind about associated membership. When it comes to regulation and standards, at the moment we're behaving as though we were in Europe, with all this bureaucracy and costs that are damaging productivity and adding to inflation. The BMPA has backed Labour's plan to seek a new veterinary agreement in an effort to remove some agriculture and food checks when Boris Johnson's Brexit trade deal, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, is renewed in 2025. It is only a renew, it's not a renegotiation. This has been stressed multiple times. But Mr. Allen said it was worth going further and exploring the option of associate membership, if it would mean wider alignments with EU rules. We want to see full regulatory alignment, he said. We want to make things a lot easier. We could still discuss with the EU some of the ways we would like to diverge from certain intervals, like Switzerland does. Shane Brennan, Chief Executive of the Cold Chain Federation, said Britain's food supply chain has suffered badly since the wave of confusion and new rules came into force with Brexit. A model that would see more sensible economic arrangement between the two sides would be fantastic, so much better than the last 6 years. From a business point of view, we want the UK and EU to be as cooperative as possible. That's a no-given. We want... Personally, we want to have that alignment. They're our neighbours. It makes sense. It makes logical sense for us to have closer alignment with the European Union. But the supply chain leader warned that full regulatory alignment would make Britain a rule taker, an outcome that is likely to be unpopular with either a Labour or Tory government. Yeah, well, whatever you just do, you've got to do with... I think it's a case of what the vast majority want. But if they want to grow the economy, they have to arrange alignment with the European Union. Like, it's ridiculous that we're reducing our standards and not being on the same par with the EU. It makes sense to have closer alignment with the European Union standards. It's ridiculous that we're pulling away from them. Mr. Bennon said a bespoke equivalence agreement on some manual shared regulations might be better, adding, "It's all about the details. If associated membership is about regulatory equivalence to remove a lot of the friction in the movement of goods, it would be attractive." William Bain, head of trade of the British Chamber of Commerce, said associated membership is an interesting idea, but added that the UK remains substantially down the list when it comes to the EU's desire to open up talk about a new trading relationship. Yes, we've talked about this before, that the EU have got other priorities and the UK is not one of them. Asked about the prospect of Labour picking up the idea, Mr. Bain said, "A new political dynamic can change things, but it's difficult to see if any appetite in Brussels at the moment to sustainably rewrite the TCA or come up with a bespoke agreement." Germany and France commissioned the EU overhaul blueprint dubbed Macron's Onion, which proposed the creation of 3 new tiers. The closely aligned states would form an inner circle with the secondary group of less closely integrated members, and an outer tier for the non-members with access to the single market. A European diplomat had told the Times that the plans had been designed with Labour in mind. Despite Sir Keir having ruled out rejoining the EU single market. The video clip of an event in Canada showing Sir Keir suggesting that the UK would have a stronger economic relationship under Labour because of the party has the same idea as Brussels on regulation. Most of the conflict with the UK being outside of the EU arises in so as far as the UK wants to diverge and do things differently to the rest of the EU partners, the Labour leader said. And he added, "Actually, we don't want to diverge. We want to lower standards. We don't want to lower standards. We don't want to rip up environmental standards, working standards for people that work, food standards, and all the rest of it." The Tories accused Sir Keir of plotting to unpick Brexit. The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, said, "I think these kinds of comments, it's not about wanting to diverge, will worry a lot of people. What he really wants to do is to unpick Brexit." Of course they would say that. "And we're going to make a tremendous success of Brexit." No, you are not. You have done nothing to prove it's been a success. We've already started to do so. And there's lots more to come. Can you give us examples, Chancellor? "We want to be good friends with our neighbours across the channel, but we don't think any suggestion that you want to align our laws and regulations with the EU will worry a lot of people who voted for Brexit." So, what do I think about this membership scheme, this associated membership scheme? It's interesting to say the least, is what is my first thought. The thing is that yes, we want closer alignment with the EU. Let's be clear, it makes sense for us. It makes sense for businesses, for both imports and exports from in and out of the United Kingdom to the European Union. It makes sense, to have that alignment. We want to reduce the red tape that has been imposed on us since we left the European Union. We want to reduce that. Ideally, rejoining the single market makes sense. Makes more sense. Now, obviously, it has been made very clear that the EU are not interested in the UK right now, and especially with this current government. Now, things will likely change when Labour come in. Now, when I say likely change, I don't mean the case of they're going to do absolutely anything. They'll work with Labour on everything, because the problem is that they know how they know how our government system works. There needs to be significant electoral reforms to ensure that such dangerous and corrupt people like the Conservatives, like these neoliberalism, these vile people who have ripped our country apart, and they're put into power again, because they have ripped this country apart and everything it stands for. Because we at the moment are stuck between two parties, the Conservatives and Labour. That needs to change. We need proportional representation. We need to have a much better electoral system so that people's votes actually make a difference and actually matter. That's the first thing we need to do. In doing so, it ensures that such dangerous right-wing parties or people are kept out of full control of power, because that's what we have right now. Now, having said that as well, because we haven't got that right now, and obviously we still haven't had an election, we haven't got Labour. It's still not guaranteed that Labour will win the next election. It's likely, but it's not guaranteed as well. Even if Labour were to win, the other problem is that the Conservatives could come back into power in the future and undo everything. There is no point the EU making things bringing the United Kingdom back into the fold if it's going to change its tune later on. It's just not going to happen. We need an overwhelming majority wanting to rejoin the EU, to rejoin the EU. Like, we're talking about 80%, I feel. Like, and there needs to be pressure on the media in order to highlight this as well. And the media can continue to deny this, but people won't stop talking about it. Now, as for this outer tier for non-members, for bid to forge economic ties, I think it's something that Labour should at least look at. I'm not saying that Labour should go for it. I think it should look at it, and I think it should have discussions with the European Union and see if some kind of agreement can be hashed out, which would reduce the red tape. I think it's worth at least looking into. I think Labour should look at it now. I don't think they and look at it if they get into power at the next general election. Anything that will help businesses prosper is a good thing for the economy. It is good for jobs. It is good for creation. So, do I believe that this? Do I want this? Yes and no. I kind of do if it means just helping reduce red tape, just making things easier for businesses. But in the long term, we need to re-establish ourselves back into the European Union in the long term. But there are lots of barriers in our way in order to ensure that happens. But we are long way off from rejoining the EU, rejoining the single market, and it is going to take time. But what we do in that time and how we respond to them is what really is going to be what really matters. So what do you guys honestly think about this? Do you think Sir Keir Starmer is actually considering this? Is he? I mean, we've heard him talking about wanting closer alignment with the EU. Now, he's not outright saying he's going to rejoin the single market and Brexit, which is what the right wing and the Conservatives are painting that in as. But is he showing a different side of himself that we haven't seen yet? What do you honestly guys think? Let me know down in the comments section below. Eager to hear what you guys think about this all. Like, share and subscribe as always. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very soon.